make it silent here.
Good morning, Facebook. How are you? Happy Monday.
Oh my gosh. And you know what? It is the day after the time change.
Right?
So, right. So
7 p.m. last night, I was thinking it was midnight.
at 7
Just
p.m.
because,
you were thinking it was
yeah,
midnight?
just because, a lot of stuff happened this weekend. But the time change definitely wreaks havoc on me because it got dark so much earlier.
Oh, right. So are you the kind of person that likes it better in the light in the morning or light at night? I guess you like it better light.
Both.
Oh, I know. In
I
a
love
perfect
summer.
world, I do. I love the light of the summer, and I wouldn't mind having the light of the summer in the winter, right? But I don't know. It's still not possible, even if we didn't change the time. I don't know. I worked in Alaska a lot, and that was a very interesting experience where it really is kind of dark for a long period of time and then light for long periods of time. And I think I'll stick with the Midwest, and I guess we'll just go with whatever is required. It's not enough to make me quit my job though here at Shimula. So
That's right. Well, thank goodness, right?
Yeah. So today, Liz, this is our second week of looking at this conversation called the Great Resignation and trying to see what people want to know with regard to the Great Resignation. And, let's just take a minute again in case somebody's new, because a lot of people are looking at the video afterwards because not everybody can be here at 11 a.m. Eastern. So you want to tell everybody a little bit about us as Shimula and you?
Absolutely. So I am Liz Kitchell, and I'm the president of Shimula. And after about 22 years in the financial services industry, I left and decided that I would go out and talk to women about the emotions behind the money, because I was realizing that a lot of women would come to the table, but they wouldn't necessarily stay in conversations with investment executives, commercial bankers, etc. And there was always something that caused them to leave. And I thought I could make a bigger difference on the outside. And after a couple of years of researching the emotions and the conversations that women had with money and that relationship that didn't necessarily work for them, I met Dawn Parks, and she has a compelling story as well around money. And we decided to launch Shimula about 2 years ago. And Shimula is really about helping women reinvent their relationship with money. And typically women between the ages of 40, 60 who have that feeling they're running out of time or money to really have the life that they want. So Dawn, tell us about you.
Sure. So I have always had jobs where I was building big teams, right? I worked inside of corporate America, either as an employee or as inside of a big consulting firm, but we were always working on big things, whether we were launching a new biotechnology product, whether we were trying to create sustainable forestry in a way that no one had ever done it before, and even working in oil and gas. And I always was well paid. And then the markets crashed in 2008 and I decided to get a divorce and I lost my job and I had wound up having to file bankruptcy, which was, oh my God, what happened? And I realized that along the way, I had never been trained in money the same way that Liz had been trained in money. My dad always said, don't worry, your husband will teach you about money. Well, I didn't get married till my mid-30s. And so that by then I had really bad habits in place. And as I started to dig my way out of bankruptcy, I realized that there were a lot of women like myself who had never had any real financial training. And as their husbands are getting sick or dying, or they're not ever getting married, they realize that they're not sure if they're ever going to be able to retire. They haven't necessarily set the money aside because they're busy taking care of their kids. They're busy making sure kids can go to college, and the future's so far out. It seems impossible to think about, or they feel like you said, they're behind the 8 ball. So that was how Shimula got started for me. It wasn't Shimula back then, but I realized that we needed to find ways to compel women to get excited about looking at their financial situation without feeling stupid. because that's one of the big things is, women aren't always taught about math or science or engineering. And then we feel like when we hit a certain age, we're too old to learn, or we better be cautious instead of, oh my gosh, you might have 40 or 50 years ahead of you. Now, what can you do if you know you might live for a lot longer? So,
And it's really interesting, Tom, when we look at that too. A lot of women, may have put their dreams a little bit on hold, like saving for retirement or saving for freedom, because they had competing priorities in a way, right? Oh, I need to take care of this for my family or my children, or um, maybe they consider their money as paying for the fun stuff, like the experiences in life. But it's not an either or conversation. It's really a yes and conversation. And we take a different lens and approach to that to figure out how to not necessarily shake everything up unless it needs to be, right?
mhm.
But creating a conversation and a roadmap for you that can be a yes and situation. You can save for retirement and you can maybe launch that new business, whatever it is you're looking to do, and make sure that everything else is also taken care of. You don't have to blow your life up.
Right, because I think as women, uh, we often, I need another cup of coffee. We often are nurturers, right? We take care of everybody before we take care of ourselves. We don't put the mask on first on the plane. We put the mask on everybody else, and then all of a sudden we're out of time. And so we're not saying that you should put the mask on and sit back and relax. We're saying if you're at this point where you're thinking about making a big change, we believe in you, right? We believe in you. We believe that you can do it. And what we have found though, is that in working with lots of women, and for me, working with a lot of entrepreneurs at Purdue, because I teach entrepreneurship there, is it sometimes takes a little bit more time and a little bit more money than you expected to launch successfully. So that's part of what we're trying to cover here in the Great Resignation. And one of the things we've been talking about last week we were talking about is how much is enough, which had us thinking this week about holidays, right? So Liz, you were talking to somebody today about, the Veterans Day is Thursday, right?
Right.
So what were you guys chatting about that I think would be really
There was
helpful?
a couple different things. Okay, coming from the financial world, we had, banking holidays. So
I know you guys would always be
right.
when I needed to go to the bank. It's like, how come I don't have the day off?
So banking holidays, and they were like, why do the kids have Thursday off of school? And I was like, it is Veterans Day. Thank you to everybody who has
Oh,
served, by the
thank you
way.
to
Yes,
all
thank
the
you so much.
veterans. Absolutely, yes.
But the thing that's really important to understand is we're entering into, two holidays, federal holidays in November, and then holidays in December, and then probably some PTO for the majority of you. And what
PTO? What's PTO?
personal time off.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So, it's often a time that people take to be with their families. It's also an amazing time to get clarity. So let's say you're making a big shift or a big change in your life and you're wanting to go, okay, I want to maybe leave the corporate world in the Great Resignation, but consider the pre-launch planning that you would have to do, right? And what better time than when you have some time and space, especially when everybody else might have school or at work, and you have some holidays off to spend some time gaining clarity while you're still getting paid for the personal time off. You know, that's one of the things that if I said to somebody today, I said, I miss those holidays that, because we got 13 a year, right?
Mhm.
And I miss those holidays where you would just get paid and the kids were at school and you could clean, or you could just take a personal day to pamper yourself or whatever it was. That's kind of how the conversation came up this morning. But it's a great time to gain some clarity and do some planning. So
Well, when you talk about that, I can remember last year during COVID, um, there were a lot of my friends, we had already launched Shimula. So we took holidays when we needed to. We took our time off because we had organized ourselves so that we could do it. But when we first got started, we couldn't do that. We were working a lot. All the time we were working to get the business rolling, to make sure people knew about our company and the kind of classes that we provide. But a lot of people who are in corporate America right now and thinking about this, the holidays are coming up. You may be back in four walls, right? You may be back at the
Mm.
office, and you're remembering last year. It kind of might even look a little bit romantic. I remember I was at home and we could, we did Thanksgiving and we shopped when we wanted to, and I could play games with the kids when we wanted. And, it's almost like a Norman Rockwell kind of vision for some people. And as you come into the holidays now, you might be thinking about that, right? How can I have that again? How can I have that time at home with my family? And thinking the Great Resignation might be one of the ways to get access to that. And
Mhm.
it's really important to make sure that if that's an important piece for you, that you think about how do you, being home when you're on the corporate America dollar is different than being home when you're in an entrepreneurship dollar.
Right.
And it is important, though, that when you are creating your own business, you find time to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It might not be all the holiday ways that you think about it, because you're still designing, selling, pipelining, delivering to your clients. If you take a lot of time off, you could run into a big problem in terms of your revenue and cash flow. But it is such an important thing to think about, like, what do you need in terms of taking care of yourself and the holidays? So, Liz, what are some of the things that you put in place? Because I have my daughter's away. She graduated from college, so I actually do have a different kind of freedom. I don't have to worry about somebody being around all the time and trying to carve out time to be with family, because we only see each other a little bit during those times. And I make sure
Mhm.
that I have those days available and I don't schedule clients on those days so that I can really be with her. But you live in the middle of family and dog and cat, and how do you manage getting your time? How will you do that coming into these holidays?
It is so important to make sure that we have clarity on what is self-care, right? So, self-care for some people means going to the spa. Well, during COVID, that wasn't necessarily available, for so many months. And then when people realized, oh, that gave me so much rejuvenation. But there's other things that also, like having very clear boundaries for me is very important, work time and family time. And there's times I do have to borrow from family, and there's times I might have to borrow from work to make sure it all gets done. But as long as I am clear with regards to those boundaries and what it looks like. So, yoga is one of those things. I just got back from vacation, right? 10 days ago. And when you're on vacation, you get a lot of like ahas. And then when you get back to your life, the automatic patterns that get in the way pop up. So I was able to do yoga every morning at 7:15. I was able to do an aquafit class. I was able to do a lot of different things. I was reading some of my favorite books and doing the exercises in the books as well, sitting poolside, and it was fabulous. But then when you get home and you're like, when I'm going to get to that next exercise in the book, when I'm going to do the daily yoga practice, because you had an opportunity to do that without the dishes staring at you. So
Right. Somebody else was doing the dishes, right?
somebody else was doing the dishes. So what I actually found myself doing is just getting up a little bit earlier, because that lift of the daily yoga was able to clear my brain to get me so clear that I could focus on my day. So those are
Mm,
the things, like when you have that time and able to do the things that really help you put yourself first, then you have a much more to give to the business, to
right.
your family, to everybody, including
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so important to um, set the clear boundaries. I know for me, the way my house is laid out, the front living room area is ideal for my office. It has a overlook of the front porch. I can have this big, beautiful blue spruce pine tree that is filled with birds. I have my bird feeders out there, and it's a really it's not too much of a distraction, but it's just enough of a distraction that but it lets me stay creative. But what I realized is that by having my office in the living room, my office was always open, right? And when you're starting a new venture, to um, to always have my office open, it was always pulling me into the office. So I got to be where all I was doing was working. Now it is important. You have to understand, when you start a new venture, there's a lot of work. There is the creativity, the excitement, the vision, your North Star. You've got a plan, and then there's actual hard work that sometimes is not very much fun. And I realized that I was working a lot, that even when I was with friends and family, all I could think about was my new venture, which is great. That means I'm really excited about it and I'm really committed to it. But by thinking about it all the time and working on it all the time, my brain never had a chance to relax, to get creative. So learning like where to put your office, especially during the holidays. If you're going to be home, you can start to think now about, if I resign, or when I resign and I start my own business, where should my office be so that during the holidays, I'm still able to be with my friends and my family without having work be an interruption because my desk is in the middle of the place, right? Now's the time to be thinking about those things. And you think, oh, I'll figure that out. But we've learned from experience, not only you and your experience and my experience, but from our clients, that the structure where you're located is an important thing to be thinking about, because you still need your sanity. And if you don't have your sanity, you'll get sucked back into this old life that you have known forever, right? If you've been in corporate America for 25 or 30 years, those first few months, you've got to figure out how to get yourself established.
Yeah.
In terms of your office. That doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a new office, right? You don't need all the fancy stuff, but you need to make sure you've carved out a space that's where you're going to work. So you have that, right, Liz? You have a great office area. And
this used to be, our spare bedroom in the house. So the room that is now my office was a spare bedroom and a place for the kids to have their toys. And when I left, I said, I need a space that I can shut the door. It's separate from the rest of the house. And when I'm in here, it's mom's working. So because the kids might get home from school and they want to chat, and I also want to be open. I want to have that open door policy as a mom as well. But I also know that, when you're in corporate America and you take an hour or two and you catch up with your family, that work is still going to be the next day and you still get paid. But when you're your own boss, you have to go, what are the activities that's going to lead to the cash? And those are the activities you have to do, and schedule and function your day around that. If I can use function in that kind of capacity.
No, I think yeah,
But
absolutely.
it made sense, right? So yeah, it's really important.
Well, and that really keeps leading to the question: if you have your own business at home and everyone's home for like 2 weeks during the Christmas holidays, how, you have to start to think about, how do you make sure that you get your work done, right? And sometimes you have to go somewhere else. So you have to go to the public library. At least now the public library is open. You can find some other places, some co-working studios or things like that. But it is so critically important. And we're not trying to talk you out of it, right, Liz? We're not trying to talk people out of it. We just, planning is so important, but not over planning.
Right.
Because what happens when you over plan?
Well, people get paralyzed.
Yeah.
They get totally paralyzed. If you overplan, you get paralyzed, and then you're like, oh, I have to take care of this resource and this resource and this resource. And then the most important resources, which are time and money, you run out of before you have success. Well,
and I think that's one of the programs. We have this really great program called your Money Master Plan Mastermind. And it's a small group of people who are focused together on taking their businesses to the next level, where you can bounce your ideas off one another, because not everybody approaches it differently, just like Liz and I are different. I'm by myself at my house and she's got a house full of people. The tactics and approaches that you use are going to be very different. And by having some people who can help give you ideas or brainstorm ideas or help you engage and enroll your family in the idea that you really need to work and they need to keep it quiet for a little while, or that they need to leave. Sometimes we always feel like we're the ones that have to leave. No, how do we kick them out of the house for 8 hours so that you can, if you're going to, especially if you're going to be the breadwinner, you have to, and so this class supports us in doing that, but it supports us in what's the proper amount of planning that's needed. Yeah.
Proper
Right.
amount of planning, what's enough on the resources, at least as a starting point, and commit to it and then see what's working, right? And then change it if it's not after 2 to 3 months. But a lot of times women, and I've seen this a lot in some of the professional women's networks that I belong to, is women often like research. Oh, I need to learn this. I need to pay somebody to do that. And then that hasn't necessarily played into what's enough money to make this launch happen. And they run out of resources without necessarily a plan to pay themselves back if they borrowed from their 401k, or if they took out a loan, or if they took out from their savings, or they started saving their money. There's lots of different ways that they could do it and fund it. But having a plan and some ideas of the activities that are going to get them there.
Right. And it is the planning. We keep coming back to this pre-planning conversation. And it's not just about pulling out your calendar. That's a big part of it. But you have to be able to see enough into the distance to know what activities that you need to take to get you, like, imagine you're in a car, right? And you're driving somewhere. You have to know in general where you're headed. And you want to make sure that the activities in the car you're keeping yourself safe, right? That it's an enjoyable drive, but you're staying on the path, right? And that the past is in the rear view mirror where it belongs. And if you're thinking about if I bring us back to the holiday conversation, there's the memories of past holidays, right?
Yeah.
And you'll never have those holidays again. You won't have the good ones again, and you won't have the bad ones again. You'll only have the new ones, right? But you get to say how you want it to go, right? What is that in the windshield, right? What is that in the windshield? What is the future that you want? And then how do you create a life that allows you to have that if you're not going to stay in corporate America? And it's just, what's the right amount of planning? So you don't have to plan 10 years out. Let's just think about this Thanksgiving and this Christmas, or whatever holiday that you might celebrate in the November, December, January time periods.
Yeah. We have such a great time with this too, with the people that we help with this process. It's a beautiful place to be in creation and do the pre-planning and draw out what it looks like. And it's kind of like a roadmap, and they're designing their own roadmap of what it looks like to be successful in their business, and making sure that the activities are in that direction.
Especially if you're tackling some things that you've not ever tackled before. When I think about where I was in terms of finances, when back 15 years ago, and I didn't know who I could talk to. I didn't know where I could go that was a safe place where someone would support me in the conversation. I had a lot of big dreams and a lot of big goals, but I knew if I didn't sort out the financial conversation, I was never going to get anywhere. And quite often as women, we don't take on these bigger conversations, these big dreams and goals, because we don't know how to, there's some element of it that we don't have training in. And we feel like unless we get that training, we can't do this. And for me, it was financial. For Liz, yours was about being able to manage your personal life because you were busy, you were traveling so much and you were kind of dying because you weren't able to be creative. For some people, it might be about, you're a big dreamer, but you don't know how to do tactical things on the ground, and you dream a lot, but never move anything forward, whatever that is, the community, being in a community of people where you can bounce off these ideas and have a cheerleader that supports you, and having the kind of holiday vision that you've always wanted. It's critical.
Yeah, when you're in the corporate world, you're not working by yourself. You might be an individual contributor, but you still have a team of people that you can bounce ideas off of. So how do you create an environment that still allows you to feel supported and gets you to brainstorm and cheerleads you on during that
Right.
process? Yeah.
Right.
And it's really interesting. I found this in myself too. It wasn't what I knew how to do that stopped me. It was what I didn't know how to do that stopped me, right? I focused so much on what I didn't know how to do, and then I had to close all those gaps. So I was one of those people I was talking about, right? Here's all the things I had to learn. And that definitely stopped me in my tracks for a while. Mhm.
It's the we get paralyzed. My motto is live to your full potential and die with no regrets. Now, my version of live to your potential is different from other people's version of live to your potential, but this is it. We don't know how long, we don't know if we have another day or if we have another 50 or 60 years ahead of us. And the holidays remind us of that. It reminds us of how we want to be with our families, or if we don't have family, how would we like to be spending our holidays? And, Liz and I just love supporting people in having the dreams that they love.
Yeah.
A lot of times, most of the people that come into our programs are looking at career changes and want to make sure that they have everything in place to make that happen, especially the pre-planning part. And we highly encourage you to keep, talking to us about what do you need in terms of planning. We have lots of resources available. A telephone call to us costs you $0. I remember in the old days, long distance calls would cost you something, but you can talk to us. We're happy to chat with you about what you might want or need in terms of your future, because the planning part is the critical part. So we've got this great program. We can't recommend it enough, but we have a lot of people who've recommended it, who really swear by it. The money master plan mastermind. What's really great about this program is that it is it's a video do it yourself program, and then you come together in a community to share your ideas, to figure out what's missing. You can get in the money love seat and talk with each other about what's working and what's not working from a financial or business point of view. But this planning process is just so critical, right? And you can bring your holidays into it. Go ahead, Liz.
I just wanted to say, we create this program as well so that money can be a person at your table helping you plan your business, right? Mm-hmm. It is a board member on your team.
Right. It is. And a lot of times we just go, oh, I need more money. I want to make a lot of money. But we don't think about how do we use it every step of the way? Just like how do you use a lawyer every step of the way? How do you use a calendar? How do you find social media? It's all, you need a partner with all of those things.
Right.
So,
Thanks for joining us.
Right. And so we have some, I wanted to say what our different topics are for the rest of the week so that people can know what we are going to be covering. So I'm going to read it so I get it just right for everybody. So, and we're always looking for people who have an expertise that they would want to share around how to get ready for the Great Resignation. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about the notion of emergency funds versus emergency credit cards, because there's a lot of people that use credit cards for emergencies. On Wednesday, we're going to keep looking at this notion of you can't take a loan out for retirement. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Thursday, we're going to take questions from the crowd. We've been getting a lot of questions from people. We're just going to hammer through all the different questions. And then Friday, Andrea Bednar is going to join us again. She was with us last Friday, and she talked about this work from Harvard University about your brain governor and getting access to what happens, to how the governor stops us in different ways than the fight or flight kind of work. And she's going to continue that conversation with us on Friday. So we're really excited to keep this conversation going, and we're going to keep doing it for many, many weeks. So
Yes. And our
let us know.
website will be in the chat after this conversation, but it is Shimoolah, just like it sounds, SHEMOOLAH.com. And you can reach us both at shimoolah@gmail.com.
Right. And the class registration keys are there as well. Everybody have a fabulous day.
Have a good one.